There is a silence that lives inside you. It is more than quiet. It is a presence, a weight. It has the metallic taste of a key on the tongue, a key to a door you've never opened. A door you fear leads to an empty room. You know this silence intimately. It is the quiet hum after the phone call ends, the hollow space in the bed beside you, the stark echo in a prayer that seems to hit the ceiling and fall back down, unanswered like dust. You have been told this is a test of faith. You have been told to pray harder, to believe more fiercely, to search for the sin that must have caused this divine withdrawal. You have tried. You have screamed into your pillow, bargaining with a God who feels more like a rumor than a reality. And the silence has only grown louder, more absolute. It has become your most constant companion, this ghost of God's absence. And in that silence, a terrifying thought has taken root, a weed in the garden of your soul. You are alone, utterly, cosmically, and irrevocably alone, abandoned. What if I told you that this very feeling, this profound soul-shattering sense of abandonment, is not a sign of God's rejection, but a sacred space? What if I told you that the silence you fear is not an empty room, but a holy of holies you were never taught how to enter? And what if the message from God, the one you've been straining to hear, is not spoken in words at all, but is communicated in the very texture of this silence you so desperately wish to escape? Forget what you have been told. Let's begin again. Imagine a man. Not a symbol, not a flannel graph figure, but a man of flesh and blood, of dust and sweat. His name is Job. We think we know his story. A righteous man who loses everything. But we miss the point. The story of Job is not about the reason for suffering. It is a story about the experience of divine silence. Imagine his world turning to ash around him. His wealth, gone. His children, gone. His own body, a landscape of agony. And then come his friends, armed with answers. They are men of certainty, of neat theological boxes. You must have sinned, they say. Confess, and God will restore you. They speak of a transactional God, a celestial accountant who balances the books of blessing and curse. But Job, sitting in his pile of ashes, scraping his sores with a piece of pottery, knows a truth his friends cannot comprehend. His problem is not his lost fortune or his broken body. His problem is the silence, the unbearable, crushing silence of a God who was once his friend, his confidant, and who is now a terrifying, mute void. Job does not ask for his riches back. He does not even, initially, ask for healing. He asks for a trial. He demands his day in court. "Let the Almighty answer me," he cries. He wants to face his accuser, to understand the charges. He is shouting into the void, just like you. And for 37 chapters, the void does not answer. God is silent. Think about that. The vast majority of his story is not about his suffering, but about him wrestling with the silence while being tormented by the certainty of others. His friends offer him a small, predictable, understandable God. Job refuses. He would rather have an honest enigma than a comforting lie. He holds fast to his integrity, to his own experience, even when it points to a conclusion that terrifies him, that God is either unjust or simply absent. And then, when all the words have been exhausted, when the friends are silenced and Job is left alone in his desolation, God speaks. But not from a place of calm reason. He speaks from a whirlwind, a storm, a vortex of untamable cosmic power. And what does he say? Does he explain why Job's children had to die? Does he apologize for the misunderstanding? He answers Job's question with a storm of his own questions. Where were you when I laid the foundation of the earth? Have you commanded the morning since your days began? Can you bind the chains of the Pleiades or loose the cords of Orion? God does not justify himself. He reveals himself. He doesn't offer an explanation. He offers a presence so vast, so wild, so utterly beyond human comprehension that Job's questions, which once seemed so monumental, simply dissolve. The answer to the problem of suffering was not a formula, but a vision of majesty. The silence was not absence. It was the space god needed to show Job that the universe was not a courtroom built around him, but a wild, glorious, and terrifying poem in which he was but a single precious verse. The silence was the pause before the poetry. What you may be experiencing is not the silence of neglect, but the silence of the whirlwind. The silence that precedes a revelation so vast that it cannot be contained in simple answers. It is the silence that dismantles your small, manageable idea of God to make room for the God who truly is. Let's travel forward in time to another man standing before a cave. His name is Elijah. He is a prophet of fire and fury. He has called down fire from heaven, defeated the prophets of Baal, and served a God of might and spectacle. But now he is fleeing for his life, exhausted, depressed, and utterly alone. He sits under a broom tree and prays for death. It is enough now, O Lord, take away my life. He, too, feels abandoned. He has done everything right, everything God asked, and his reward is a death sentence. He is tired of fighting, tired of believing, wanting only for it all to end. God sends an angel not with a lecture, but with food and water, twice. A small practical act of tenderness. Then he is told to go to Horeb, the mountain of God. And there he is told to stand and wait, for the Lord is about to pass by. And we see a repeat of the cosmic power. A great and strong wind tears the mountains apart, but the Lord was not in the wind. After the wind, an earthquake, but the Lord was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake, a fire, but the Lord was not in the fire. Elijah, the man of fire, the man of spectacle, looks for God in the places he has always found him, in power, in noise, in earth-shattering displays. But God is not there, and after the fire, a sound. The old translations say a still, small voice, but the Hebrew is far more strange, more mysterious. It is kol dimama daka. It translates more closely to the sound of a thin silence, a voice of sheer silence. Let that sink in, the sound of silence. It is not an absence of sound. It is a sound in itself, a presence so subtle, so gentle, that it can only be perceived when all the other noises have ceased. God was not in the storm. He was sight the silence after the storm. Elijah had to unlearn his entire concept of God. The God of spectacle had become the God of subtlety. The God of the crowd had become the God of the quiet heart. He wrapped his face in his mantle because he knew he was on holy ground. The silence was the presence. You have been looking for God in the earthquake. You have been waiting for the fire. You have been demanding the mighty wind, and you have been met with silence. What if you have been looking in all the wrong places? What if God is not in the noise of your desperate prayers, but in the quiet space that follows? What if the silence is not his answer, but his very nature, waiting to be perceived? This requires a new kind of listening, not with the ears, which are tuned to the loud and the dramatic, but with the soul, which resonates with the quiet hum of being. And there is a place where this silence becomes most profound, most terrifying, and most saturated with love, a place we are often afraid to look. For this, we must go to a garden, late at night. The air is thick with the scent of olives and the chill of impending dread. See him there, Jesus of Nazareth. He is not serene, he is not stoic. The scriptures say he began to be greatly distressed and troubled. The Greek word is ichthymbaistai, meaning a kind of horrified amazement. Another word used is adotmanein, a vague, heavy, dreadful sadness. He is falling apart. He tells his closest friends, "My soul is very sorrowful, even to death." This is not the calm, detached deity we have painted in our cathedrals. This is a man at the ragged edge of his endurance. He falls on his face and prays, "Abba, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me." It is a raw, desperate plea, a cry from the depths of a soul facing an abyss. And what is God the Father's answer? Silence. No angel comes to take the cup away. No voice from heaven promises an easier path. There is only the Gethsemane silence, thick with the weight of what must be. He sweats, the scripture tells us, as it were great drops of blood falling to the ground. A rare medical condition, hematidrosis, can occur under conditions of extreme stress. This is not theological metaphor. This is physiological reality. The Son of God is experiencing an agony so profound that his body is literally weeping blood. And he is alone. His friends, whom he asked to stay awake and pray with him, have fallen asleep. He goes to them once, twice, 3 times. They cannot even share his watch for 1 hour. This is the loneliness of the final hour. A solitude so deep it is a premonition of the cross. This is the God who knows what it is to have your friends fail you, to face your darkest moment with no one by your side. Now, follow him from the garden. See the betrayal, the sham trial, the mockery. See him scourged, crowned with thorns, forced to carry the instrument of his own execution through jeering crowds. And see him nailed to that rough, splintered wood, hung between heaven and earth, a spectacle of human cruelty and divine humility. And from that place of ultimate suffering, from that throne of agony, he speaks. But the most important words he says are not words of forgiveness, not words of promise, not words of instruction. They are a question, a scream. He cries out in his native Aramaic, quoting the opening line of Psalm 22, so there can be no mistake, no softening of the blow. Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Stop here. Do not rush past this. This is the central hook upon which all of history and all of eternity turns. This is the message from God for the one who feels abandoned. It is this cry, the God who cannot, by his very nature, be separated from himself, cries out in utter desolation. In that moment, in the person of Jesus Christ, God enters into the most extreme possible human experience, the feeling of being utterly and completely abandoned by God. He does not stand apart from your pain, offering sympathy from a safe distance. He dives into the very heart of it. He drinks the cup of your abandonment to its dregs. That silence you feel, that sense of a cold, empty heaven. He felt it, that feeling that your prayers are meaningless, that you have been forgotten, that you are forsaken. He screamed it. The great terrifying secret of the Christian faith is not that Christ saves us from the abyss. It is that Christ joins us in the abyss. The light of the world descended into absolute darkness, so that there would never again be a darkness where he is not. Your feeling of abandonment is not a barrier separating you from God. It is the very place of communion. It is the holy ground where your soul touches the soul of the crucified Christ. You thought your loneliness was proof of his absence, and all this time it has been the proof of his presence. He is there with you in the empty room. He is there with you in the silence, not as a rescuer breaking down the door, but as a fellow prisoner, sitting with you in the dark, sharing your desolation and sanctifying it with his own. This changes everything. It reframes the very nature of God. We have been conditioned to think of God's power as dominance, as control, as the ability to rearrange reality to suit our needs. But the cross reveals a different kind of power. Theologians call it kenosis, a Greek word from a letter by the Apostle Paul, found in his epistle to the Philippians. It means to empty. Paul writes that Christ, though he was in the form of God, did not count equality with God a thing to be grasped, but emptied himself by taking the form of a servant, being born in the likeness of men. He emptied himself. What does this mean? It means God's power is not exercised through coercion, but through self-giving love. It is the power of the seed that falls into the ground and dies to become a great tree. It is the power of the parent who becomes small to enter the world of their child. It is the power of a love that does not dominate, but makes space. Think about it. A God who was constantly intervening, constantly speaking, constantly fixing everything, would be a tyrant. There would be no room for human freedom, no space for authentic love. Love, to be love, must be freely chosen. And for love to be freely chosen, there must be the possibility of its rejection. There must be space. There must be silence. The divine silence is not God's indifference. It is his respect. It is the holy, loving restraint of a God who refuses to overwhelm you. It is the quiet confidence of a lover who waits to be chosen. He has given you everything, the universe, your life, your consciousness, and even his own experience of abandonment on the cross. And now he waits. He waits in the silence, not as a test, but as an invitation. An invitation to find him not in the whirlwind, but in the stillness. An invitation to discover that the love you have been searching for has been with you all along, as quiet and as constant as your own breathing. So how do we live in this new understanding? How do we navigate this sacred silence? We must learn to reorient our spiritual posture. We are used to a posture of speaking, of demanding, of presenting God with our list of requests like a cosmic vending machine. We must now adopt a posture of listening, not the anxious listening for a voice, for a sign, for an answer, but a deep, receptive listening. The kind of listening you do in a forest, where you slowly become aware of the rustle of leaves, the call of a distant bird, the hum of life that was there all along, but was drowned out by your own noise. Prayer, in this new key, becomes less about speaking and more about being. It is the practice of simply being present to the presence that is always already there. It is sitting in the silence and trusting that you are being held. It is breathing in and knowing you are receiving a gift, and breathing out and knowing you are offering yourself. It is to find the kol dimama daka, the sound of sheer silence within your own heart. For some, this silence might connect to even older traditions, whispers from texts that sit just outside the canon, like the Book of Enoch. Enoch is taken on a cosmic journey, shown the vast impersonal workings of the universe, the storehouses of the winds, the foundations of the earth, the laws governing the stars. It's a vision not of an intimate personal God, but of an immense structural, almost mathematical divinity. From this perspective, what feels like personal abandonment can be a failure of scale. We are looking for a whisper in our ear, while God is orchestrating the silent turning of galaxies. Our painful silence might be the sound of a gear so large we cannot perceive its movement. This doesn't diminish the intimacy of the cross. It deepens the mystery. The same God who set the stars on their silent paths also chose to enter our tiny, noisy world and experience its most painful silence. The cosmic and the personal, the whirlwind and the whisper, are not contradictory. They are two aspects of the same divine reality. So what now? Where do you go from here, sitting in your room, with this silence that has been your tormentor and is now perhaps revealed as your secret sanctuary? Do not try to fight it. Do not try to fill it. Just be with it. Let it hold you. Imagine that the silence is not an emptiness, but a fullness, a quiet, living presence. Imagine it as the dark, rich soil in which your soul can finally put down roots, away from the harsh glare of easy answers and loud demands. That feeling of being lost and unseen, that is the wilderness where the prophets were made. That sense of being at the very end of your rope, that is the Gethsemane where you discover you are stronger than you think. That cry of "Why have you forsaken me?" rising from your heart, that is your voice joining the sacred chorus of Christ himself. You are not being punished. You are being initiated. You are being led away from the shallow waters of a simple faith into the deep, mysterious, and ultimately more loving ocean of a God who is big enough to be silent, a God who loved you enough to share that silence with you. Let's try something. Right now, wherever you are, close your eyes. Take a deep breath, and another. Let the tension in your shoulders go. Let the frantic thoughts in your mind slow down just for a moment. And listen, past the noise of the street, past the hum of the refrigerator, past the chatter in your own head. Listen to the quiet space between your thoughts. Listen to the rhythm of your own breathing. Can you feel it, that quiet, unassuming, steady presence? That is the holy ground. That is the place of meeting. You have been searching for a message from God. You have been waiting for a sign. But the message was never going to be a shout from the heavens. The message is a hand that finds yours in the dark. The message is the shared silence of two beings who understand each other beyond words. The message is the profound earth-shaking soul, rebuilding truth that you are not, and have never been, alone in the silence. The silence is not God's absence. It is his embrace. Breathe. Just breathe. Can you feel that? that quiet rhythm within you, that steady beat of your own heart. That is the echo of the still, small voice. That is where he is, always.